Someone was raising his hand? Yeah.
My name is Ajay Mutreja. I have seen a lot of startups which have been failing in India is predominantly because even though the creative ideas are coming from youngsters, the problems are actually identified by people with experience on the shop floor, at the R&D level, in the markets and sales. Unless we try and understand what those problems are and try to resolve them, whether for private companies or for the government. So in Berlin, the startups that are happening is an ecosystem created with a combination of banks, SMEs, small and medium enterprise entrepreneurs and employees, working along with the startup entrepreneurs. And today I understand their success rate is close to 35%, and India, whatever numbers I've heard, is still in a single digit. What do you think you would like to do in future going forward?
If you go through the action plan, the Government of India's action plan or most of the states' action plans, we really concentrate on ideas and give shape to those ideas, prepare the whole ecosystem to lend shape to the ideas. But I suppose iCreate is doing a bit on training the right people for hiring by startups. And I would request Anupam from iCreate to reply to your question.
Sir, I think it's a very perceptive, very good question. As with everything, it's a process, a journey, but we understand that real problems are identified by real people. Often it doesn't happen that the inventor or the creator might have an accurate grasp of the problem which needs to be solved. That's why we've evolved a very specific model to address just this. First, by a process of discovery, identify the key problems or important problems in various segments which need fundamental solutions. Then seed that into the minds of creators, inventors, entrepreneurs, so that those solutions can therefore get evolved. So that's exactly what we are attempting to do, so that whatever is invented and created is of real use to people on the ground. Thanks.
I would also like ask Jay to supplement.
The problem that you stated is absolutely a true problem, right? And I used to be an entrepreneur before I got on board with T-Hub. So there are two, if you look at first principles, the stands that we have taken for T-Hub, and I think that's one thing that needs to be appreciated, is that one model will not work for all. The stands that we have taken at T-Hub is that 90% of startups historically have failed world over, and we are not here to change that statistic. The idea is to look at the 10% that are going to succeed and filter out that 10 and then double down our bets on those 10. So what we do at T-Hub is really two things. As far as the incubator is concerned, we have a filtering mechanism that's kicking into place literally as we speak, where we look at the stage, scale, scope of the company and figure out how much impact does it have for India. We are not very keen on startups that are solving delivery of food through an app, and I'm being very, very explicitly open, right? We have startups in our building. These are 50-year-old amazing entrepreneurs who've come back from places like Johns Hopkins. They have no revenue visibility for the next 3 years, but the guy is building a liquid biopsy chip that is going to do early stage cancer detection. I mean, that's the stuff that excites us. That's the stuff that's going to solve India's problems. And that's what we look for. So it requires a lot of hand-holding for the filtering. Post the filtering, what we do is we double down on them and put them into various programs. So that's the model that we've adopted so far, and so far it's worked.
Yes, please.
Sir, the question is for most of the states other than Karnataka. So basically, what we've seen is most of the states, when they engage with other incubators, it tends to be not-for-profit structures, institute-based structures, etc. Thankfully, DIPP, Karnataka, and Niti Aayog have gone beyond that. So to other states, the question is, are you doing something to also engage with for-profit or private limited structures where they're running incubators? And if yes, please, if you can get to know more of that. Thank you.
See, in Hyderabad, you have one of the earliest examples of how state has collaborated with a privately for-profit incubator, which is the IKP, the ICICI Knowledge Park. In fact, there's no better model than IKP to really understand how you can continue to make profits, but how the state can also continue to handhold and support you. And that remains there in our innovation policy also. In fact, in the innovation policy, also, as I spoke about, we have assured 1 million SFT of incubation space, and a large part of it will be contributed by private incubators. So we don't have anything against incubators which are making profit. All benefits, all assistance is applicable to them as well.
The case in Rajasthan. In Rajasthan also, we are encouraging private companies, private institutions to come forward. Chintan, can you please elaborate?
Yeah, so Pranay, I mean, if you go to the Rajasthan startup policy, so we have provisions for corporates doing accelerators, for co-working spaces basically scaling up as accelerators. And sir, to answer your question, I mean, I think one incubator can only do as much. But if there are corporates who want to set up incubators, that solves the problem. So you don't need to kind of build all expertise in-house. So if there's a hardware company or if there's a textile company and they set up an incubator and they know exactly what the problems of the textile industry are, and they are best suited to kind of at least know the problems and scout the right solutions and kind of create a incubation system out of that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, so even in a private incubator, it's going to be startups who are going to do the innovation. See, private companies will not have the risk appetite to kind of do incubation themselves, right? So their capital is fairly, they won't be able to do this kind of research on their capital. So they set up an incubator, they'll have to invite, as you rightly said, startups, they'll have to get a few mentors and facilitators, and they'll pick up one or two which are kind of making progress, which they can absorb and then take it forward.
Can I add? Even in Gujarat also, we are also following the same model. The only thing that we are doing that out of those 20 nodal institutions which have been approved, 2 or 3 are already, these are private run incubation center. The only thing is what we are asking them to do, in fact, 18 or 20 odd are with us pending for approval. The only requirement which we are asking them is that you should have at least 3,000 square feet of working space, and you should have at least 2 or 3 incubators already working. So that, because the way it is going on, we would like to promote actually more and more it should be in the private sector. But we are not asking them to take equity in those startups which are being funded by government.
See, public or private is not the issue. It's about forging partnerships. Incubation is all about bringing everyone together. Yes, please.
Yeah, sir, myself Rajiv Ranjan from ITS Engineering College, Greater Noida. My concern is, as Jai sir has also told, 90% means ideas is failed down. So, and only we are working on 10% idea. Why not to analyze what is the reason that 90% ideas has been failed down? Just as we think, so many startups are not able to get the nourishment to build their product. So why not to build an incubation center at district level? So it will be able for each and every people who are coming from that locality to easily accessible incubation center. For then so some sort of planning should be there to sort out that ideas, and if it is okay, then it should be promoted to nodal centers or incubation center. Right now mostly we are having incubation center in capital or big cities. Why not to have that incubation center at remote places? It may be on district level. That would be more beneficial.
Can I
Thank you.
take it for a moment? My point is, this is more of a market-driven thing. It is not that we can guarantee success for, none of the incubators can guarantee success for anyone, though we can screen, we can support and all the stuff. And the reason why they go to the major numbers, why is it that people flock to a Karnataka, Bangalore or a NCR or a Pune? For a reason, or Ahmedabad. There's a reason because there's a cluster, there's an ecosystem building there, and it is very alive and vibrant. You go to a coffee shop, you might make a deal there, but may not be in the remotest place. We can start doing things to generate more idea. Even if 10% succeed, let's make it a 10x. If out of 100 only 10 succeed, let's make 1,000 ideas so we get 100, and that's the only way we'll be looking at it. I don't think we can ensure that every idea succeeds. It's a market-driven thing. And just to come back to one point here, there's a question of sustainability on your private profit-making incubator. How many numbers do you require to make yourself sustainable? How much to earn profits if it's a profit making? There's a reason why originally it was for charity, because it was constantly money had to be pushed from government to keep it sustainable. And it can't be done if it is a purely private profit making. Government will find it hard to pump in that kind of money. So that was the reason probably. And so as long as people are willing to have a sustainable model, I think all the government entities will be willing to open up their space on a subsidized rate, or like we give it on free for 3 years. You build a sustainable model till that time. But we charge on utilities. Somebody else gives the utilities free, but then they give a subsidized infrastructure. So it's finally what makes it running. That's for the private entities to figure it out.
I'd just like to add a corollary, that failure in this space needs to be understood. The 10% success rate, 90% failure rate is not a bad thing. Point number one, companies or startups or individuals who fail once does not mean that they give up. They cycle around again, start something else, more wise, more learning. It's also a jungle law, survival of the fittest. You're not doing a job. You're starting a new company. You're giving employment and sustainability to a lot of others for maybe the longest period in time. If you're not strong enough to sustain yourself, you will not be able to sustain families who end up depending on you. So this failure is rather a healthy, natural process. Always the endeavor is to try to reduce this component of failure, but it should be seen in this realistic light rather than just a very negative thing.
Point to add, the issue about tier 2 cities need to be supported. With our experience for the New Age Incubation Network, we've seen pros and cons as well. You need much more support and much more capacities to be built in tier 2 cities. But they have the immense strength of understanding the roots, and the kind of projects that the students come up from there amaze us. Not the kind of projects that the Bangalore students come up with. The kind of intent, the kind of drive that tier 2 city college students have is amazing to notice. And so I think we have to invest into tier 2 cities to ensure that the funnel becomes bigger, as well as help them fail faster will also help.
I am Ajit, founder Khushigram. Here this side. Taking further from the district to tier 2 cities, we are working in villages and blocks. And there are a lot of opportunities. In fact, Professor Anil Gupta, you must have heard of from Ahmedabad. He has documented more than 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs of innovations. How many of them we can turn into a sustainable business model, enterprise model? So we are basically a social and green enterprise platform. So we are looking at training as well as setting up incubation centers at district as well as block levels, and even panchayat levels if possible, if the panchayat leaders are, and if the panchayats have. Innovations are everywhere. In the villages, small students, class 5, 6 students are also innovators. And you'll find some ideas which are really very good. Even PhD from MIT or John Hopkins has not been able to provide. So let's look at that. And another question is that a part of that is that the solutions to the problems, rural problems, integrated solutions. There is not, you can't just provide water or sanitation in a village and say that village will be developed. You have to have livelihoods, green livelihoods. And everybody is talking of climate change, adaptation funds, renewable energy. So how to integrate all these? We are working in these areas. So what are the prospects for incubation in these areas, or if we look at integration? Thank you.
So I think that point is very, very relevant. But I want to take a step back and sort of expose what we've done to address that space, and possibly also address another question that came up. You know, one of the beauties of the model that we have, and Jayesh had one slide up on it, but the beauty of the model that we have is that we are governed by the government and not regulated by the government. So we have operational freedom to a large degree, owing to which we've picked up a few sectors which make sense for India. And the social sector is one sector that we've picked. We've had amazing partnerships with a lot of foreign entities. So, you know, to give you another very insightful example, we are moving in a German startup into T-Hub who takes pictures, who's built an analytics engine that takes pictures of crops, and it tells you the probability of pestilence. Now we're tying up with Samsung on the other side, and we're launching this thing embedded in their phone, such that farmers' behavioral patterns can change using technology. I mean, these are the interventions that I think can be hosted by incubators and yet dispersed through distribution channels without having to necessarily play the brick and mortar game in tier 2 cities. And I think these are the interventions that you know, I was referring to when I spoke about the 10%. But I'll be happy to talk to you offline to see how we can work together.
if I could also quickly add, very important point that in a tier 2 city, which also answers the question there, you might not need a lot of infrastructure. It can be a very lean kind of a model there. And one of the most important things for any innovation, whether it's a rural, social, or a tech innovation, is what is called as an MVP. I think most of us would know, a minimum viable product, the ability to do a pilot. So as long as we are able to get that knowledge or process out into the tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, how to convert your idea into a pilot with very, very frugal kind of resources, the kind of things that the grassroots innovation, but the ability to be able to pilot it and implement it. So I think, even whether it's a tier 2, tier 3 city, it doesn't make too much of a difference. So it need not be a very hardware or a asset heavy kind of a thing. So as long as that process is there, I think we'll be able to see a pipeline very, very soon.
Yeah.
So I represent a biotech startup in Hyderabad. So basically, I think one of the failures, one of the problem of taking startups in biotech sector, in life sciences sector to the next level is not having proper ecosystem for manufacturing. Because once we have that second line, like manufacturing in place, then probably many of the startups would graduate and probably would go up to next level, which is probably missing in many of, to give a simple example, I have been in a reagent company and have been acquired by a French company now and then started another instrument manufacturing in the medical devices sector. Importing a small optic part is a big, big issue. And another point probably is a suggestion for all the governments to look into is to have import of many of these stuff, like to facilitate import of many of the parts which are not available in India, can make things easier for in medical devices at least. Thank you.
One quick comment. First of all, congratulations for such an excellent interaction here. I think another thing that we need to address is activation of latent demand and market access and networks. That's something that we need to talk about in this conversation. We need to bring that element as well when we are talking of crossing the valley of death. These are some of the aspects that we could consider at some point.
Comments?
You're very, very right, ma'am. Market linkage is ultimately the oxygen on which any enterprise will succeed or fail. And it's also one of the most difficult things to manage because of the diverse nature of the projects that come up, unless you're a special, a vertical focused incubator, like I'm a ITES focused or app focused, then life becomes a bit more simple. But the moment you're a heterogeneous one, so therefore, and again, it's a brilliant point you make, you have to dedicate serious resources to be able to provide market linkage to your incubating companies. If you're not doing that, and if you're hoping things will work out, then that hope seldom comes true. So that's one of the most important things. And latent demand, again, it ties in with the tier 2, tier 3, or the genuine problems on the ground. What is latent demand but a series of problems or issues which are confronting people for which solutions are needed? And what is an innovator but a person who creates those solutions? So the more dialogue and discovery you really have in connecting to the grassroots where the problems are, so that you might seed, you might actually guide an innovator कि भाई आप ये करिए, इस चीज़ पे करिए. We sometimes, want to leave everything to the creativity of the startup. But sometimes they are young startups, they may not have so much life experience, or sometimes the older ones would have a very sector-focused experience. That's where our role, more of a guide of nudging them in the direction in which solutions are needed to be created, would play a very important role.
Hello, my name is Sumit Swaroop. I'm part of the NASSCOM 10K team. I'm based in Delhi and I look after North India. So I'm going to make a guess that if you look at India, the 30 states of India, there are a number of states in the top tier who have done a number of things for startups and technology. Then there are a number of states in the middle tier, and then there are some states which are behind, so to say, which have much more social problems and security problems. from your experience in over the last 5 or 10 years, what would your advice be to states in the middle and lower tier to do something in the area of startups, innovation, technology? Is there something that they can do right at the start? Is there something they can do from the government perspective, from private sector perspective? Or do you think there are more pressing issues of the social issues and security issues to be solved before they can move on to more things like innovation and technology?
I think, first of all, this classification of states may not work out well. As I told you earlier, we have a Karnataka with a Bangalore or a Andhra with a Hyderabad, Delhi, which are mature markets, which is a different. Telangana is on a clean slate. They can do whatever they want. So that's a different issue. So I come from a state which is very anti-entrepreneurship. So everyone has a different problem. And don't assume that just because the startup is not located in that state, people from there are not creating enterprises. People from Kerala, from you name it. I don't want to name any state on the tier 3 because that will be an offense to them. So across India, people might be going to these hubs which are currently there, which are legacy hubs. And they are doing their business there. It's because the funding agency is there, the mentors are there, the ecosystem is there, and the skill pool is there. So people are going into all these places. And every government will find out their strength and evolve a model which they'll come out. None of these models are going to be replicable. We will not be able to replicate a Karnataka because we don't have that powerhouse of IT behind us for that matter, or biotech, IIScs and all those things. So everyone has a different strength, and each state will evolve. And with the support that we are getting from various Government of India agencies to start incubators, you are literally flooded with money if you have an intent to do this. I'm worrying like if you have too many incubators and very less people to get into that now. So we've got to be conscious about that also. And clustering helps for the simple case of even if a startup fails, the people get absorbed into another startup. These are larger issues. So I think we'll not look wise if we answer to that question.
But I personally, and I think from our department also, I can say on their behalf that the investment into the early stage, Kerala themselves have proven they are initiating, catching them young. If the education system inculcates innovation, it inculcates the right spirit, it will have far-reaching impact. What we do now will show results in the coming 5 to 10 years. So if we hit them right at the root, the impact will show. And I think DIPB policies are indicating that all the states should initiate wherever they have a role to play.
Yeah. Hello. I'm Bhushan. I am from Government of Maharashtra. I am the state coordinator for the Department of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. I want to learn it from people. We are actually in a stage of framing the policy for our state now. So particularly on the fund and the funding part, I would like to take some advices and lessons from you people, that FOF, something we are now, some of the states or most of the states have created FOF. And there could be a direct mechanism also. State can possibly institute a fund itself to directly fund these entrepreneurs. And funding it, I think, is a big trouble for all these entrepreneurs. So what is the better way? I mean, what do you recommend as we are in that stage? So for funding, FOF should be a better way, or a direct funding so that the state has directly the stake in their businesses. What should be the good way?
Let me answer your question. See, the states should actually create fund of funds, as Government of India and many states have done. Some states also have their venture funds. But it's most appropriate for the state to create a fund of funds and invest in venture funds, as Government of India's scheme is there. Invest in venture funds and let the venture funds then do the due diligence, evaluate the startups and fund in startups. Let not government directly fund startups. Okay, 1 or 2 venture funds the government can create, maybe to look at some sector-specific startup, like suppose government wants to promote agriculture or food processing in a particular state. You can do that. The best model is let the fund of funds invest in venture funds, and the venture fund in turn spend in startups. That's the best model. Yeah.
The venture funds. So, I mean, that depends because we depend again on the venture funds to provide for our aspirants.
right?
See, the lowest is the startups. Then there are seed funds, angel funds, venture funds, and then the fund of funds. If you want to directly get into funding startups, that will create problems. Let there be n number of venture funds, 1,000 venture funds, which will then get hold of startups. That will be, venture fund will be more easily accessible to startups than startups directly accessing fund of funds. That will be difficult.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So one question.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Sir, actually two questions. One is each state has its own policy and the center has an action plan. Some of it are common areas and some are not. So how do you all reconcile the efforts? And the second question is increasingly the lines between an incubator and accelerator are getting blurred. So in your mind, how does the difference remain between an incubator and an accelerator?
I wouldn't get too caught up in nomenclature, but accelerator is, I would say, the next stage of the incubator with a very specific focus of getting funding. Many incubators choose to do that function in-house, but an accelerator is a very short cycle time thing, 2 to 3 months perhaps at the most. And the focus is in grooming the enterprise so that they are A, investor ready, and B, they get invested in. That would be the core difference. An incubator has to work through the whole cycle of prototyping, field trials, starting to get revenue on the books, building up the organization, training the people. So big difference between the two.
That's the last question, please.
Yeah, can I take? So maybe for a country which is obsessed with
I'll take yours also.
Thank you.
For a country that is obsessed with building more and more Indian institutes of management and Indian institutes of technology, do you think the time is ripe for either DIPB to take the lead and create an Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship, or should the states themselves start creating institutes of entrepreneurship? Jay, you can't say that entrepreneurship can't be taught. I don't want that as an answer.
Hi. Siddharth Dasgupta from OYO. So startups are disruptors, right? That's almost axiomatic. And when you come up with a disruptive idea, it runs into existing rules and regulation, which might have been drafted 40, 50 years back. So I personally experienced it working for a digital cinema company, which is now perhaps the largest network digital cinema chain in the world, about 7,000, 8,000 digital cinemas. But when this idea came, when they came up with this idea in 2006, per the Indian Cinematography Act of 1951, digital cinema was banned in states after states, saying that it is not a valid medium of projection. 10 years later, sir, I mean, we cannot think of watching a movie in other than digital format. It is shot digitally, it is distributed digitally, it is projected digitally. But 10 years back, it was banned. So when startups come up with an idea and it, say, run fouls of the existing rules and regulation, what can the government do? And this question could be taken up by anyone in the panel to address quickly the rules and regulation which come in the way of their growth or progress or seeding or growth of that idea. Because typically they do not have the bandwidth like, say, an existing company with, say, 100 people, corporate affairs, legal and regulatory department who can make endless rounds of government to, have this problem addressed. So, any comments on that, please? Because if it is not addressed, then it could be that some great idea gets killed at the incubation stage. Thank you.
So actually, we are dabbling with the. So on this teaching entrepreneurship, we have a very good example of the Technology Entrepreneurship Program (TEP), which the government runs together with ISB. And as I was explaining, we identify the second and the third tier engineering colleges, identify talented students. Every year, around 500 students are supported in this program from their third year onwards. And at the end of it, they are assessed by ISB professors, they are given a certificate. And some of them are also getting migrated into proper incubators like T-Hub, etc. So while it's not a full-fledged institution, but we do take help of ISB to curate this program on entrepreneurship. Regarding this matter, again, it's a very big responsibility of the state government. And one of the great things which the state governments can do really to support the world of startups is to ease their way through legal and regulatory kind of challenges. And one live case that we are dabbling in right now is on electric three-wheeler, isn't it? Scooter or a three-wheeler kind of electric three-wheeler. Now, as of now, the transportation department in Telangana does not have any regulation on how do you really permit these electric three-wheelers. And actually the police advised against introducing electric three-wheelers because the city of Hyderabad is already having too many other three-wheelers, conventional three-wheelers. But because it is an interesting product and it helps meet a very important clean energy requirement of the city and can provide a very good last mile connectivity to the metro project which is coming up in Hyderabad, we have actually batted on their behalf and got this regulation introduced. So someone has to own up the world of startups, and in Telangana we are the nodal agencies to do that. Any startup which faces any kind of regulatory challenge. So the challenge which Shesh mentioned, sir, about his biotechnology company. Actually today I'm supposed to take time from you and take your help in resolving his matter. So that is what we do actually.
Thank you.
So we'll close this session. I would like to thank all the states to make a wonderful presentation and participate in this Q&A session. And now, please, for the next session.